Hi everybody and welcome back. Today we are making a shaker card with the Sweet Snowflakes die set as well as the Filled with Joy stamp and die set, all by MFT. This is another one of those small die sets that are super affordable that you could do a ton with. So I grabbed just some pretty colors from my cardstock selection. I do not know the brands. I don't know the actual color names. I don't keep track of that kind of stuff. This is more than likely stuff that I got in a kit at one point. So I die cut a whole bunch of these snowflakes from all three colors of this very pretty color cardstock, and I cut a ton of them. In fact, I have a ton left over, but I wanted to make sure that I had enough. It took a few minutes, but I got them all done. So next we're going to work on the shaker part. So I'm going to take a piece of heavyweight cardstock. This is just white cardstock, and I'm going to line up a stitched rectangle die, trying to keep it as even as I can around all four sides. Stick that down with some Post-it note tape and run that through my Gemini. Then you can certainly keep this middle piece for another card, but I need to cut out another panel, so I'm just going to use this. I'm going to take another stitched rectangle die. This is, I think, the third to largest in this die set, and cut a piece of that. So basically, we're going to create a frame. So I'm going to take a piece of acetate, and this is just packaging from something. I don't know. I keep my packaging for acetate, and I cut this just a smidge larger than an A2 size, just so in case I don't line it up right, I can just trim off any excess. I'm going to line this entire skinny, tiny little itty bitty frame with some wet glue because I just like wet glue, but you can use double-sided adhesive, whatever you want to use, and then line that acetate up on that. Now, some of it is sticking out off the sides. I'm fine with that. You just want to make sure that your wet glue is dry before you snip off any excess. It's pretty easy to do, especially being it's an A2 size. It's very easy to keep that size and not have any of that acetate left over. Now I'm also going to glue this white panel, this smaller panel, down right in the center, but I want to make sure that I'm adhering this to the front. If I adhere it to the back, you're going to see those glue lines. So I'm going to add a little bit more glue, but I'm not going to take this all the way to the edge because I don't want any of my glue to squish out. And I'm going to line that up the best I can on the front in the center, kind of creating that frame. Again, letting that dry for a couple of minutes, and then I will line the entire back with foam tape. Now I'm going to also add the foam tape to this large center square or rectangle. And then for the frame itself, I had to cut this into very skinny pieces. So you can use any size frame, any size die to create your frame. And it may be a little bit easier if it's a little bit thicker, but I know I wanted to add a ton of snowflakes in the middle, so I needed as much room as I could possibly have. So I lined the entire back with that foam tape, and then I'm going to add my snowflakes. Now, because I don't measure or really plan out my cards, I have an idea in my mind and I kind of just roll with it. These larger snowflakes do not fit. So I'm just using the medium size ones and these little tiny ones, and I'm kind of just scattering them out. I'm not really paying attention to what color is near what color. I don't really care too much. I'm just kind of making sure that they are kind of snug in there. They're not going to move around as much as a normal shaker card, but they're going to move around a little bit. So I want to make sure that I'm giving a little bit of space in between each one. Now, so that I don't have just snowflakes in my shaker card, I am going to add some sequins. Again, this is not a brand that I am aware of. This is kind of just ones that I've accumulated over time, and I'm just kind of picking some matching colors. I'm not using a ton of sequins here. It's just to kind of fill in any gaps that we may have. So next I can remove, well, first I realized that I left a little bit too much space in that center rectangle, and my sequins and my little snowflakes are going to get stuck to that foam tape and kind of get stuck in the middle and not really shake around too much. So I ended up adding a little bit more foam tape in between those two gaps right there, just so that doesn't happen. So next I can remove my foam tape, and you want to be super careful when you're doing this, because if the foam tape or the backing gets a little bit stuck and you try to pull it, all of your bits, shaker bits, are going to go flying. and you're probably going to be picking them up for several weeks. So I always like to hold the acetate itself while I peel off the foam tape, and that will kind of keep everything in place, even if something does get a little bit stuck. So once that is removed, I am going to take my card base, which is an A2 size card base, and I'm going to line that up directly on it. I like to keep everything upside down. It's much easier to line up. And if I do have any hanging over, I can just kind of snip that off. But this time I actually did a good job lining it up. So next we're going to take the Joy stamp set, and I die cut this out. There was no stamping here, and I keep wanting to say I stamped. I die cut that out with that the darker cardstock of the three. And I'm going to kind of layer these snowflakes for my O. So I took one of those large ones that I had left over, and then the other two colors for the smaller snowflakes, and I'm just going to line these up. Now you can use these snowflakes as is, or they certainly do kind of layer on top of one another, and it looks really pretty. They fit perfectly together if you line things up correctly, which I did not. But next I am going to adhere my letters. So I'm going to use my work surface here, the grid lines on my work surface, to determine where the middle is, because I can't eyeball something like that. And I'm going to stick down my O. Now this is where I realized that the center piece, or the center snowflake, was not lined up correctly. So luckily I did use wet glue. It was pretty stuck down at this point, but I was able to remove it, add a little bit more glue, and line that up correctly this time. Now that my middle is done, which is the O, I can go ahead and adhere the remaining two letters. Now I didn't pop these up because I figure we already have enough dimension from the foam tape for the shaker part itself, so I just glued these flat. I did add a little bit of shimmer with a Spectrum Noir shimmer pen to the letters as well as the snowflakes, and I should have added this before. The letters were no big deal because they're kind of chunky letters, but for the snowflakes I probably should have added the shimmer before I adhered it down, because they're pretty teeny tiny areas. And pop quiz, what's coming next? Anybody? Glossy accents. I haven't used it in a couple of days, so I have to bring it back. And I'm just going to add some glossy accents to those letters to give them a little bit more shine. That shimmer that we added will be seen once the glossy accents is dry. You'll be able to see that shimmer right through it. So today I am collaborating with Tara, who is also making a shaker card. As always, I will link her video below, as well as all of the supplies that I used in today's card. Thank you guys so much for stopping by, and have a great day. Bye.